Alright, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Before we start, I believe for Muslim, let us all recite Al-Fatihah, and this is for, let's hadiahkan juga kepada those who are already leaving us, especially during this pandemic time. Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Alright, can you hear me clearly? Ami boleh Ami?
Clear to me.
Yes, very clear. Loud
Alright.
and clear.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Wishing all of you are in the pink of health. Stay safe and happy throughout the historical challenge we are in right now. Puan Sharifah Zaida Nurlisha, the President of Malaysia Oil and Gas Services Council, and fellow ESCO members, and as well as Secretariat team, Mr. Shahrul Amir Zamri as the champion of Project Management of the Future, PMOF, Group Project Delivery from Petronas, as well as fellow leadership team and Project Fraternity, fellow guest speakers from Project Production Institute, as well as other other companies whom I'll be introducing shortly in more details. Industry leaders, management representatives, fellow project practitioners, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second workshop in JIC webinar series, the Joint Industry Collaboration Program. In the MOXI platform, we are here together in MOXI platform, and together with members of Malaysian oil and gas services companies, championed by Petronas. And thank you for joining us online today in this beautiful Friday morning, 30th July 2021, Malaysia time. All right. Before we go further, I think we can maybe not all, open your mic and give a big round of applause to everybody joining us today. Thank you very much. We already have 122 people joining us as the attendees, plus presenters about 70 people. So all in all, about 130 something, and we believe more people will be coming. And first of all, pleased to introduce myself, Al-Azhari from Petronas, as the result manager in the Joint Industry Collaboration AWP and PPM Task Force. And I'll be facilitating our event today until 12 noon, inshallah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last month we had our first workshop on advanced work packaging, AWP. And today we are going to explore project production management as the new era in project delivery. And before we go further, let me walk you through the agenda briefly. Let's see the agenda. We'll be listening to the vision of new era in project delivery in Petronas perspective at first, and followed by an overview of PPM to be presented by the very own technical committee representative from Project Production Institute, PPI. And later we'll be listening to the sharing on PPM journey and application by our global peers in industry, representing owners, operators, EPC, as well as the solution providers. All right. And there will be a panel discussion before we wrap up at the end of the session. Okay, some key messages to participants, 3 messages to be exact. First, please feel free to post your question in the chat room. We will be handling it. We will get our speakers to answer either during the paper presentation itself or during the panel discussion. All right. Second, turn off your mic. I think you cannot turn on anyway, right? So unless it is instructed, and be ready to turn your camera on for the group photo we will be having later. All right. And third, please do enjoy the session. Gather as much insights from the sharing by our reputable guest speakers today. All right. So, and now it is an honor for me to introduce our guest speakers for today. Let's see the guest speakers. Next slide, please. All right, first speaker will be Mr. Craig Evans, a senior advisor in Operation Science, Capital Project Functions, Chevron Corporation. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Good.
Craig
Hi,
is
everyone.
joining us from London, UK, and it is currently 3 a.m. in the morning. So thank you very much for the commitment, Craig.
Well, good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and hopefully share some good insights today on our journey so far. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are also looking forward to the sharing, and thank you very much again. Mr. Dhiranandana, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of PT Tripatra Engineers and Constructors, a major EPC company in Indonesia under Indica Energy. Apa kabar Pak Dira?
Alhamdulillah, thank you. Thank you to be given the opportunity to share also the experience of us in adopting this PPM here. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you Pak Bapak Dhiranandana. And our third speaker will be Mr. James Chu, the prominent technical committee member of Project Production Institute. Mr. James, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to the presentations of our esteemed panelists and the panel discussion and the questions. Thank you.
Hope to see your video as well, James. Are you ready for the video?
I am showing my video.
Oh,
already on.
All right. Maybe my only I cannot see. All right, thank you, James. Anyway, Mr. Roberto Abulu, Vice President, Technical Solutions of Strategic Project Solutions, SPS. Hi, Roberto.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon. Good evening to some of you as well. So, thanks for the invitation to participate. Thanks to Petronas and thanks to MOGSC. Really a pleasure. And also, thanks to all the participants today for joining.
Thank you, Roberto, joining from Houston, USA, right?
Correct.
And we will be having our moderator as well. Please to introduce our principal construction from Petronas, Tuan Syed Abdul Razak Syed Ali.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Thanks all, and good morning, good evening to all. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to be part as a moderator in this session. So looking forward to be a moderator. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Syed Razak. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Shahrul Amir Zamri, Head of Project Management of the Future, to set the stage today and begin the discussion, delivering context from Petronas' view of new era in project delivery. Over to you, Mr. Shahrul Amir.
Thank you, Al. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, very good early morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone in Malaysia and the rest of the world. Puan Sharifah, ESCO members of MOXI, CEO, leaders and captains of the industry. Firstly, thank you for being here. And I would like to start to just offer a prayer for everyone that is in this forum, our families and friends so that we are protected and given the strength both physically and mentally lah in going through the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. It is indeed a great challenge to everyone at all levels, whether it's at the individual level, at the family level or company level. And I think I'll probably oversold the expectations on apa nama the vision that I'm going to share. I actually intend to make this opening remark very brief for two reasons. Firstly, if you look at the agenda and look at the lineup of speakers, I counted just now. If I add all the 5 speakers, we have 100 years of cumulative experience. Let's maximize to listen from these experts and leaders of the industry as much as we can. I think, and today is a Friday, there'll be some of us that will need to go off for our Friday prayer later on. And more importantly for me, and I think it's a good indication that actually today is the 5th session that project management together with Moxie have conducted webinars and engagements since our first session on 4th May 2021. And then on average is about 1 session for every 18 days, which is just slightly less than how much time do I have to meet my own boss, GDB, because of our busy schedule. So for me, this is very encouraging, and I think this will create momentum for not just for Petronas, but for all the industry as a whole, together with the support from our partners, that we can move the industry, we can move the way that we do project delivery to the new era. Right? Through this session, I think we can learn new things, and we unlearn some of the old practices, and we push our organizations towards the new normal. So with that, I would like to welcome all the participants to this workshop on Project Production Management, a new era of project delivery. PPM, or Project Production Management, is indeed one of the levers that we have identified in PMOF to be deployed in even some of our current projects. And to me, this session is very timely so that everyone, both Petronas and other partners that we have, can understand the benefits of this new concept and discuss the execution challenges. And together we create value to our organizations through deploying these tools and solutions in our projects. I think before I end, I would just like to take this opportunity to record again my appreciation to Moxie, my team from Petronas, and of course, my personal, my honor and special thanks to the invited speakers and subject matter experts from PPI, Chevron, Tripatra, and SPS. Let's have a constructive discussion on the subject today. Let's find out together and gather ideas and how we could bring our project delivery performance to the next level. Thank you very much, Al. Pass back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amir, for the opening remarks and the keynote address. And we are perfectly on time, 10:15 now, and it is very interesting for us to hear the sharing from our panel speakers. All right, and let us start. I would like to invite Mr. James Chu from Project Production Institute for the first paper on PPM overview. All right. So again, for the participants, you may ask your question, post in the chat room. We will try to have it answered either within the session, within the paper presentation, or during the panel discussion later. So over to you, Mr. James.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you for again giving us this opportunity to present what PPM is, introduce what PPM is. So we'll take about 15 minutes to actually go through the basics of what PPM is, and then actually hand off to Chevron, Tripatra, and SPS to give a more me on the examples so that you can actually get a more holistic understanding of what it is. But before we get started, just to actually give you a little bit of a basis for what is it and how is it different. So why are people starting to actually look at PPM? What's the purpose? Okay, the purpose is to actually reduce project duration, cost, and use of cash. The keyword actually being and. Okay, so what we're actually trying to do or looking to do is to actually say, can we actually improve the duration, cost, and use of cash at the same time? So, okay, that's good reason. So what is PPM? So when you think about PPM, there are these things, these numbers that we would like you to actually think about. And those are 4 verbs, 5 levers, and 3 curves. And you might be thinking, what is that? So we're going to spend a few minutes actually talking about what those are. So what are the 4 verbs? 4 verbs are design, make, transport, build. Each organization that's actually attending the seminar right now or the workshop may have different terminologies. You might actually use the terminology feed. You might actually use the terminology front-end loading. You might use design and engineering. Whatever the terminology actually is, make actually could be fabrication, manufacture, whatever those are. What we're talking about is the actual act of doing something, making something, right? We're not talking about the more of the administrative side, but the actual operations that produce something within the in the project environment. So design takes an idea and produces designs that can be actually used to make something, right? And the make, again, takes raw materials and the design to actually produce an output that can be actually installed and utilized. Transportation takes a material from one location and transports to the next location using ships, trucks, ferries, boats, whatever it might be, okay? And then the build is the element that actually takes the materials and equipment, the actual permanent equipment, and using the labor and temporary equipment to actually put it into place and make it operational. So those are the 4 verbs that we want to focus on. So when we're thinking about production system, we're thinking about those actually 4 verbs, okay? Now, how do we typically manage those 4 verbs? How do we typically manage engineering? How do we typically manage fabrication? How do we typically manage transportation? How do we typically manage building? One of the common ways that we actually do this is actually using a schedule, okay? And schedule has been something that's been around many years, many decades, as you know, and there's numerous tools around the world that actually produce the schedules. Now, schedule actually is, you can actually look at it as if it's actually one side of the coin. Schedule represents what should actually happen so that we can actually deliver the project within the time frame that's given, or what should actually happen so that the interfaces between each of the trade or the organizations are in sync. However, what really happens actually there's other components that drive what actually happens, and that is availability of the material, availability of the labor, availability of the equipment, assignment. So even if you actually have the labor, what they work on that specific day will determine your actual outcome of the schedule, right? So the left side, the schedule determines what should actually what happened, but what the combination of everything that you see here, labor, equipment, space, material, how they're actually utilized will determine what can and will happen, okay? So what we're doing is looking at both sides, demand side, as demand, which is the schedule that's actually put on the production system, and the production system to ensure that what should actually happen is something that can and will happen. And if it's not going to actually happen, or it can be actually even be better than what should happen, then influence what's on the left, okay? So that's the difference between the scheduling and something that we're actually working on the production system. Okay. Now, when we're working on the production system, there are different rules at play. So traditionally, when we actually look at project management, and that's actually also my background as well, one of the things that we were taught in school was that the cost, time, and cash in a project is determined by scope and quality, and the schedule, and the resource use. And we were told that if you want to improve the schedule, that we would actually have to provide more resource. And if you want to lower the cost by reducing the resource, we would actually have to give more time. And if we wanted to increase the schedule, improve the schedule, at the same time reduce resource, if you don't want to actually increase the overall duration of the project, the only way to do that is to reduce the scope and quality. And I think that relationship is well explained using something called the iron triangle. Okay? You can improve two, but the other one actually would have to suffer. Now, however, your experiences might actually tell you that that's not always the case. I'm sure everyone's actually experienced a project where you actually had a really good outcome of scope and quality, improved the schedule, and you've not utilizing all the resources you had thought. You also actually had a project where the schedule was extended, you actually you had to use more resource, and the scope and quality was not what you actually expected. So that iron triangle are many times broken by reality of the situation. And why is that? And if that's actually happening, there must be other factors that drive that behavior. So if you look at project as a production system, here's how we actually look at the levers. Okay? Rather than just the scope and quality, it's about the product design. Now, one of the key elements that's actually been happening in the world of construction these days in product design is the standardization and modularization. Okay? So those are elements that actually drive how a production system behaves. Rather than just the schedule, it's about the process design. Okay? Now, how the work will be done, not when the work will be done, how the work will be done is actually a big factor in driving the cost, time, and cash. And what we're going to do is take the resources on the top and actually break it into two pieces. One, the resources that are typically material, labor, equipment, space, all those things, we're going to actually bifurcate them into two. And we're going to call one side capacity. Capacity is what does the work. As the icon shows, it's the labor, equipment, and space. What does the work? And inventory is what the work is done to. It could be your raw material, or you could be your engineering design, or work that's actually being worked on, something waiting to be worked on, or something that's being worked on is all considered inventory. Okay? And last but not least is variability. And variability actually has a very, very interesting play. Because if you have exactly the same product design, same process design, same capacity, same inventory, and different variability, your cost, time, and cash will look different. Now, all these 5 levers actually have also interdependent relationships. So if you actually have a lot of variability of design, variable design, then their variability is going to increase. If you standardize your product, then you actually have reduced the engineering part of the process. Okay, so there is actually interrelationships here. So with all these moving parts, how do you actually understand the behavior or even optimize it? The way to do that actually is using what we call the operations science. Okay? Now, operations science is the actual field where now you can actually use to understand the behavior of any production system. Okay? Not just actually project, but even any manufacturing systems. So our industry is actually using this science to optimize fabrication of chips, hard drives, and the elements that actually go in, all the elements that go into your computer. Right? Companies actually like FedEx and Amazon, they're actually using this type of formula to understand how to optimize the distribution of their infrastructure. Okay? So what we're doing here is actually taking that science and applying it to the project environment. Now, there are few equations and laws that we can actually talk about in depth, but I'm sure you guys are actually itching to hear from our other speakers, so I won't go into too much detail about each of the math. But what it does say, is that there's relationship between utilization and cycle time. As the utilization of your labor and equipment actually increases, there is going to be an impact on cycle time. The other element that our guest speakers will probably talk about is work in process. How much work in process that you actually have in your system is going to determine how much work you actually get out, but at the same time, how much you will actually suffer as we increase the work in process in terms of cycle time. Okay? So those are the three curves. So we talked about the four verbs. Four verbs are design, make, transport, build. 5 levers are product design, process design, capacity, inventory, and variability. And the three curves are the three curves that you see on the right, with the equations actually representing them on the left. Okay. So what can you do with this? What can you do with this is the question. What can you do with this is, once you actually have a project or project environment or projects all simultaneously, you can actually use this methodology to map and model so that you can understand the current behavior, what's driving the current behavior, or even yet predict what behaviors you are going to see once the project is in execution. Okay? And how do we do that? By either simulating and analyzing and optimizing that production system. Now, if you just actually simulate and analyze and optimize, and that's all we're doing, then you won't be able to actually really get the benefit, because the execution and the actual design might be totally something different. So you actually have to actually take that production system and be able to control to it and improve. Okay? So our panelists are going to actually talk about what they're doing in terms of these areas, so actually you can understand from their perspective. Okay? So all in all, if we actually put that all together, what is PPM? PPM is the actual application of operation science to map, model, analyze, simulate, optimize, control, and improve project production systems. Okay. When can they be applied? They can be applied anytime throughout the project. Okay. Now, as everybody here knows, as we mature through the project, the ability to actually influence how much change can be made will reduce. However, we actually have seen many cases where it's actually implemented during even the execution of a project and still deliver huge results. Okay? So, when's the right time? Right time is probably today. Okay? So, with that, I'm going to actually hand it to Craig to actually talk about his experience with PPM.
Thanks, James. I think let me just share my presentation. Okay. Once that comes up, if I can just get a sort of thumbs up from somebody that they can see the Chevron page, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's coming already.
Coming up. Okay, excellent. So quickly, we'll just quickly give myself an introduction. So I'm Craig Evans. I'm the Senior Advisor for Operations Science within Chevron, within our capital projects function. So we have an area within Chevron that's just focused on delivering capital projects. Before I start, I'll tell you a little story maybe that I can relate back to Malaysia. I've worked at a lot of different places around the world, and about in 2007, my first son was born that year, and we were living in Vietnam at the time, and we took our first holiday to Langkawi with him, and he was 6 months old. So, and there's two highlights from that trip. One is one of the milestone highlights, and one is one of the worst highlights. The first one is he sat up for the first time. You know when your baby sits up for the first time and it's your first child and it's one of those big yay. So he sat up for the first time when we were there, and sat up. So we were like very proud of him and everything. And the worst was, on the way back, he decided to scream on every single flight continuously from Langkawi to Kuala Lumpur to Ho Chi Minh City. So that was the worst flight we've actually ever had with him in his 14 years. So, you know, two very different things, but, you know, I remember Malaysia very fondly as well. So it's good to talk to you today. Quickly, so I'm just going to go over a few things today. So why has Chevron looked at project production management and we're applying it? How we're applying it and some of the value that we're seeing from it, and then also sort of what's next for us as well in this space. So why project production management? So Chevron's done a lot of looking back over the past few years, you know, going back to the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, and you know, looking at our projects. And there's really two elements that we see that was impacting our return on investment. So, you know, we're in the business of returns. We need to make sure our shareholders get good value for their investment in us. And there's two elements there. One was selecting the projects, and the other one was the execution of those projects. So what we found is when we looked at project production management, it can help us with both of those. So, you know, James talked about the modeling part and the simulation part. So there's an opportunity there, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And also definitely in the execution part where you want to control the work or understand what that is. And then sort of last year, Chevron, you know, went through a lot of transformation events, and one of those things that came out was, you know, improve capital project performance. Okay, very high level, strategic. And then the next one was, you know, we want to be more competitive and more predictable around that. So at the strategic level, you know, that, you know, everyone can sort of rally behind that. How does that really come down to the people who are doing the work? So one of the big changes is, you know, we now view projects as systems. You know, James talked about as production systems. We talk about them as project dynamic systems. So they're all scopes that work with each other. You know, we need to understand those objectives. We use operations science to help us understand that, and then we're going to, you know, optimize the work around those various elements. So I'll talk to some of those today. So really, what has Chevron's journey been like part of, or how have we gotten there? So James talked about, you know, this production system modeling and the simulation, and then the controlling at the end. Well, you know, right or wrong, Chevron did a great job of starting at the controlling part, and we slowly worked back up to the optimization and modeling part. Part of the reason for that was that we started, as like a lot of companies have, with projects that are in not performing or not meeting their objectives. So we went, you know, to the tools that could help us control the work and deliver those objectives. You know, projects like Gorgon, FGP that we're doing in Kazakhstan at the moment. So very much straight to the controlling the work. Through that journey, we also found that a lot of the value in project production management can be unlocked in selecting the right opportunity and understanding how the system's going to work and control to that system. So a lot of the work that we've been doing in the past, I would say, you know, 2 years now, has been very much at that front end of looking at a project, modeling it as a system, and then, you know, then controlling the work around that there as well. So to say that some projects we still execute, just do controlling, and some projects we just do the modeling. But we found that when we can model and then control, that's where we unleash the most value in this space. I will sort of also add that from an owner's perspective, it's very much a continuing journey. There's not only internally within Chevron and our affiliates improving our fluency in this and understanding project production management and operations science. A lot of the terminology is different. It's also in our business partners, so within the contracting community, within the government, you know, bringing them along on the journey as well is very important, because it is definitely a different way of doing things to what we're used to in the past. So that's also very important as well, to make sure we bring everyone else along with us. It's not just say we're going to do it and then expect our contractors to go do it. There needs to be an element of education, support and training. And that's one of the things that we've been very big on, is providing that to our contractors at the beginning. So, you know, we will provide training and we will provide support when we, you know, specify we'll use this tool on a project as well, to make sure we bring those people along. And then internally, you know, doing a lot of work with, you know, both PPI and then, you know, I think we're going to hear from SPS today as well about just bringing on our own people internally and developing our own OC internally as well to get to that point. If we look at application to date, I could have done a whole list of projects and everything. I tried, not to do that, and this sort of relates a little bit back to James's, design, make, build. The last one was there, James. Sorry, but so we have various different phases. So you heard pre-feed and feed. We've changed to a term called opportunity shaping, which is pre-feed out there in a lot of the places. We've applied this in pre-feed. And then also other areas. So I have a break on my system that forces me to take a break every now and then, and it just popped up. So sorry about that. So we've done it in concept select, where we talk about modeling the system. So as we're going to select a project, so we've got various different alternatives. We've got, well, we also want to be able to model the system and understand how that system's going to work. So my example there is if I'm going to do a float over kind of platform versus doing various modules that I'm going to stack together, or decks I'm going to stack together. Both of those will behave differently as a production system, because batch sizing or bringing one big module out versus various smaller modules out. So then we get to feed and detailed engineering. We've been using it in those areas as well, and applying another solution sort of called CAPE, or production engineering, where we look at building a lot of the installation processes or the installation sequencing that we're going to do while we're designing it. So it's an iterative process there. And then in supply chain, so all the usual supply chain areas: procurement, contracting, fabrication, and then also module fabrication. We've done some of this work under the both in the logistics shipping from Southeast Asia all the way through to various different parts of the world, and then also actual module fabrication in that area. And then construction, systems completion, startup in all the different areas, all the different disciplines and trades. We can go down to I'm going to show some examples today, down to the lowest level of installing a spool, and then also up to the highest level of transporting large modules globally around the world. So we can do this at various levels. So looking at engineering deliverables. So a very important thing with this is you're really looking at the process. So moving from the Gantt chart kind of process to just steps, and understanding the steps in a process first. So you'll see that sort of down the bottom there in that diagram there, and also in the top right hand corner. And each color represents a different discipline or different trade. So just mapping out the process steps before we start mapping out durations and how long it's going to take us to do that is very important, to understand each of the steps. And the other critical element, what we found is really good, is when you actually have this is critical, this is how you should do it, sorry. The people who are going to be doing the work need to map the work out, because they're the people that understand it. And what we typically find, and this is one of the great, I guess, values. So I see value in two ways. There's the qualitative value of getting work done better, and the qualitative value of, what did I save in money and time. So qualitatively, it's people understanding the work, who they need to work with, who they need to hand off to, is really valuable. And then what that translates itself to is typically time and money. So we've seen application on critical equipment, POs, getting things out the door, and linking supply chain and engineering and different disciplines together in that. And you can see here that we've seen stuff where we can take 14 to 28 days ahead of plan, and reducing cycle times around that. One thing I will also say is in Chevron, I guess, probably at times is less focus on, can we save so much cost, or can we save so much time? I think in the current industry in which our performance, if we could just be on time and be on budget, is a great achievement. So a lot of the time, that's what we are focused on, and that's our be predictable. So, I talked about selecting the right opportunity at the beginning, which is being competitive and selecting the right project and selecting the right cost targets. And then the next part of it is being predictable. So think about the modeling as being the competitive part and selecting the right project and setting the right targets. And then the control of the work, which is what you're looking at here, is being the predictable part and delivering stuff when you said you're going to deliver it. This is another thing that's like a small scale application. So this is looking at modeling it and then the actual work. So this is some work that was done for a project in the Gulf of Mexico. And this is down looking at a very low level. So the opportunity here was, the concern was, would I get the piping isometric drawings done in time to feed the spool fabrication, which is then in time going to, feed the piping erection on the various different modules. So here is an example of where we've just mapped out the isometric production in a engineering system. So you can see the stuff comes out of the 3D model, and then it's either stress tested or goes through, stress analysis or not stress analysis. And you always have a certain element of rework as well. Information comes in late, or I've got clashes come in late through that. So very simple to map the process in this. And then we only really had two resources in this one, or what James referred to as capacity before. So you saw the 5 levers, and we talked about the process. So that's the top part. The capacity is those column charts there, and we had designers and engineers. So we had the contractor that we were working with here had an allocation of 6 designers and 2 engineers to do the work. So when we mapped, so they had 60. So let me get back to that. So the objective was to finish all the piping isometrics starting in June and finishing them by the end of October. So the blue line here is showing the objectives. This is what they wanted to do with the 6 designers and 2 engineers. So when we modeled this, it came out that we were going to be overutilized, so 115% of designers, which I think earlier on the call, we're talking about some newspaper said there was 117% of people sort of vaccinated kind of thing somewhere. So you can't go over 100% utilization, and being at 100% is not, you're typically going to end up with some level of variability. And you see the engineers weren't as critical there. So when we modeled it, it's the orange line here is what we said where your outcome will be. So, at the end of the year, at the end of December, with 6 designers and 2 engineers. So we had a recommendation to the contractor to say, you need to add some capacity to meet the objective. Our contractor said, no, we've got it all in hand here, and we're going to continue with what we've got. And we said, okay, well, let's just test this. It wasn't super critical. It was something we had a bit of a buffer at the end here. So you can see the black line is the actual. So they kept proceeding. You can see the black line is trending pretty close to what we said they were going to do in the model. They then added some capacity. So they ended up going to 7 designers and 2 engineers still. So the designers were the critical. And you can see, they ended up sort of somewhere in the middle around that with that extra capacity. So we're able to demonstrate that, we were very predictable in being able to look at modeling the work going forward on that. Now we've applied this same methodology to things as big as shipping modules from one part of the world to the other at a very high level, and then down to installing pipe spools and other elements. So it really depends on what problem are you trying to solve and where you want to go and apply this tool. But it's very much showing that the science works behind this, and that's sometimes one of the hardest things to convince people, is that the science will happen in there as well. This is another element here. So a little bit about, I just sort of mentioned the shipping of the logistics around the world. Well, we did that, and then we added the stacking of modules. So we were shipping modules from Southeast Asia to an onshore project, and then once they got there, we had to stack them on top of each other or reassemble them around that. And when we did the modeling, it said, the logistics chain was great. We're going to get them all on time. The problem was going to be the stacking facility on site. So that was the bottleneck. So that was the capacity constraint in there. So what we did, we focused on improving that process and controlling the work in that area. 6 very high level steps, and then within there, there's lots of little steps in there. So we use a lot of standard process mapping in each of the different elements here, pre-stack, stack, post-stack. And then had a team, this is sort of combining, I think it was about 6 or 7 different contractors. So we had transportation, we had the crane people, we had lots of handoffs between, from one contractor to another contractor, then back to the next contractor, then back to the original contractor, sorry. So lots of handoffs in that. So what we really want to do is get the modules and get them set on foundations so that the next step can go along. So what we saw here was, we managed to reduce the overall duration by 30%, roughly 3 months on this one. So we had modules on foundations earlier. And the interesting thing was the further opportunity to reduce cycle time. So we could actually even get better at this, because what was actually happening was a lot of the time, nothing was happening to the modules. So they were sitting around, they were sitting and waiting on capacity. So they're waiting on the be able to go to the next system, kind of thing, or the next process step. So we saw that there was a lot of opportunity in that space as well. So, you know, it's interesting when you get into this, you start being predictable and getting on time, and then you start finding, wow, okay, hang on, there's so much more out there. And I think that's where the real value can be unlocked in this, is getting beyond that. And if you're planning for that value and then realizing that value, that's where the real returns will occur. Conscious of time, and I'm sort of almost there. So what does the future look like? I'm going to talk a little bit about digital, but before I get to that, we're still progressing in our journey. We're working with various projects at various stages in Chevron to implement project production management and operations science across our capital projects. We use the term operations science a lot within Chevron, and it's a key enabler within our capital projects model now. So we have various different elements. We have digital as a key enabler. We have conditions precedent as a key enabler, and operations science as a key enabler for us. So it forms one of the base elements of our capital project delivery model going forward in that space. From a digital perspective, we're seeing a lot of value, and this is where we're focusing some of our attention at the moment. So, Chevron Production Manager, that's the tool we use to control the work. Out there, you'll see this little digital diagram here, and this is just how data comes into us from that tool. And James has been working with us on this as well a fair bit. And we get the data 4 times a day automatically into our system, and it sits within Chevron's data lake in our warehouse. And then we're able to apply certain machine learning and AI applications in this space. And some of the things we actually have already deployed is we can look at task predictability. So we can forecast whether a task will finish early, on time, or late. And we can forecast that with about an 80 to 90% accuracy. Now, we've used it for predicting wind impact on work. So be able to use work that's been impacted by wind, and then what's the wind forecast, and then tell us what the plan for the next day. And then also to sequence allocation of capacity. So, trucking, for example, we can allocate using the work that's coming out of this and the predictability, where we should send trucks at a certain time of day to do an actual activity. I think the future in this stuff is where the excitement stuff for me is. You saw in mine that I've done an AI course, but coming out a lot of the information here. So we have in 2 years we've collected information on around 350,000 tasks, around 10 million hours of work, and 32,000 reasons why work didn't get done. There's a whole bunch of other data in there as well that I could go into, but that's sort of some high level stuff. So, where we're focusing now is creating some norms around that. What can we see from estimating and planning, and what can we do automatically out of that data versus manually? Predictive analytics. So, using analytics from both PPM and other areas of the enterprise to say, what's that telling me is going to happen? So leading indicators versus lagging. And then I think that the next big thing also is the the IoT, the Internet of Things, and integrating sensors into our work processes, and whether this just be on materials and equipment or trucks or shipping. That I think is just automating workflows, which just makes us a lot more efficient and allows us to focus on the important parts of work as well. So that's, I think, everything I had. I know I've gone a little bit just 1 minute over time, so sorry about that. But I don't know if we're having questions now or we're going to have questions later on. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I think we have yet to see any question from the chat box, and you can still continue to post your question, and we will be having Craig again in the panel discussion later. And always you can connect with Craig from the slide you have seen now in the display. And Next, I would like to invite closer to home from Indonesia, Bapak Dira Nandana. Thank you, Craig and from Chevron perspective. Now Dira from EPC perspective, and in Indonesia is closer to Malaysia. Maybe we can relate a lot of things and learn from experience of PT Tripatra in implementing PPM. Over to you, Bapak Dira.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen first. Sorry, can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope everyone is well, healthy. It's very tough, right? I mean, we just hear a very interesting story from Craig, that is from client perspective. I hope that I can also share the same excitement in our journey here about PPM, and this is from the contractor perspective, and for sure it won't be exactly the same to compare the muscle, the resources that Chevron has. Okay, maybe just a bit introduction about Tripatra. Just basically just to tell that we are not recent in the business. So we established in 1973. So we start as an engineering consultant. Then we expand our business to EPC. Now recently we moved to asset management. So we are trying to complete our full value chains of this asset development. So in this time that I'm going to share about why PPM at Tripatra, what we have achieved so far, and what comes next. Let me start with this one. So, no work, no money. I think that everyone will agree that if no work, there will be no money. So that is, I think, what is also our basic understanding, right? But then the next question will be that how to get more work, right? In this situation, how to get more work, especially that if I compare to ourselves, that recently it's become more and more challenging in executing the work, right? I think that let's be honest to ourselves, and so same with us, that now it's so difficult for us to meet the schedule, the time given, the baseline given by the client, right? And then because of that, of course, then we also experience or we have to incur more cost in order to complete, because we have a commitment to the client. But the sad thing about from the first phrase, that the no work, no money, now we have work, but still we have no money. That is also challenging for us. We have work, but no money, right? So then another question, how to become more effective and to get more work, right? That is how we see so far, and then comparing also to our experience and because of the challenges in completing the project, in delivering the project. So it always bothering our mind. And because of that, then we have told ourselves, I don't think that if we keep doing the same thing all over and over again, it will help us. So more of the same does not work for us. We need to find something new, right? I hope that is also probably why we are here and trying to explore what is actually available out there in order to assist us improving ourselves, right? So this is about our journey, though. Why PPM? How did we find it, right? So basically, what we are understand that we need to have some improvement in our productivity, and we have the rationale for us starting from the maturity of EPC business in Asia. We see that I think we are not really that mature comparing to the Western countries. So we know that we need to do more in order to get that level, right? And then the project execution challenges, as I also sharing before, right? That become a really bothering to ourselves. How come that in earlier days when we just entered to the EPC, I think everything looks quite manageable, but now it's become more and more and tougher, right? So then somebody whispered to our ears, right? Maybe you need to find the new approach, right? And then why don't you also try to learn about the project production management? it is a new body of knowledge, right? It is not a tools, because somebody will think that, well, if we apply PPM, automatically that we can be successful. No, this is a knowledge that we need to understand, right? So that is also what we are trying to keep telling ourselves. This is a new knowledge that we need to learn. So then we start our exploration. We start in about 2018. We joined the annual symposium held by PPI in San Francisco. That is where we start learning about that. That the early the following year we start adopting it. So that is where we start. That is where our journey started. Right? So later on, then we also push ourselves to, even though that we are still in the learning phase, we are trying to push to use it in one of our project, one of our fuel terminal project. And as I think, as we all know, during the learning phase, always that sometimes we stumble and we have to again get up and then try again. So that was the experience that we were experiencing. And then after that, the fuel terminal is actually an APC type of project. And then we see quite some challenges. So then we also told ourselves, why not trying also start with the engineering project? So now we are trying implementing this in the engineering project. So that's where we are at the moment. So that's how also that we found about PPM, and more that we learn, that we feel that this can be the answer that we are keep looking. So I think maybe one of the maybe the thing that we feel is very close is that, because with this one is actually because before I mentioned about or share about this maturity on APC in Indonesia, when we haven't known about this PPM, we always trying to manage the project, even our subcontractor, even though that we have contracted them, we are trying to manage them. It's quite in a very detailed manner, because we know that unless that the execution is successful, that we will not be also successful. So when we understand about this knowledge, then we think that it's quite close, because what this knowledge is trying to teach us is about how to manage the execution, about the how, right? So we are not really talking about the when, like James mentioned earlier, right? So we are talking now. We are trying to understand about the how to do the work, right? And then that's basically what we did a long time before. But then when we getting more and more mature, we use many of the, say, project management tools, and then we are somehow we are like we move from that time, and then we just use that. Then we forgot about how the importance to do the detailed execution planning. And when we did that, because same, I think the issues that we are facing in trying to delivering the projects always that I think is quite also typical with the industry. I mean, between the contractor and the client. When the contractor fail to meet, and then we start talking about rebaselining without really understand what caused the issue, right? Then we start about baselining. And I think is what we experience sometimes, that even 2 or 3 times, sometimes even 4 times, that we have to rebaseline the schedule. And at the end of the day, it does not help everybody. It will not help the contractor. It will not help even the client, right? Because the client would like to get the asset as completed as soon as possible so they can operate. So after that project, then we and also with the knowledge that we start learning. So then we ask ourselves, what if then the project will be treated as a production system? So that's how we start going more deeper, right? What is actually the project as a production system? It's not basically we are trying to see all the process, all the activity within the project, and group it in the a production system, right? So, for example, on this illustration, this is on the piling production system. So we model the piling production system, we map all the processes, and then we analyze after that. So this shapes, and even though that it's like a sequential from left to right, but it doesn't actually tell a time. This is talking about process. This is talking about system. So we start with this one. So same, and then same with this precast site production system. We also do like that. I think in our old days, when we said about piling production system, our piling work, maybe the blocks maybe it's only 4 or 5, right? Now you can see when we detail this to become a production system, it can be, we have to capture all the possible, or like I think James also explained about the 5 levers, right? So we are trying also to adopt that, and when we are trying to map or model the production system. Same like precast site production system. We also developed that. Of course, at that time we were helped by SPS in doing this, and you can see right on site production system, those shapes are many, right? It's not as what we used to do when we say production system. Basically, we have this say precast fabricator, then we just give an order, then after that complete, then they send it, and then we install, right? But that process is the same, but because of this mapping and the modeling, that the model of this production system become this. But to us, is also, this is not only about it's not really generating more time. It's actually is to gain more control on this by doing this. So this is also something, an example that we learned, right? So if you see on the top side, there is I think the original thought in how we will do the pile cap installation, the beam installation, the bottom slab installation, and top slab installation. So basically on the jetty, that at that time we construct a jetty. So James also mentioned about the WIP, which is the work in process. So the cycle time, which is important. So basically we're trying to control or to monitor the cycle time, the raw process time, the queue time. So if you compare after the mapping and the modeling and the analysis, we can reduce the WIP to quite significantly. For example, like you can see in the above, in the pile cap installation, the WIP is 140, and after that simulation, it becomes 62. And please remember, less WIP meaning less use of cash, right? So it's more cost efficient if we have less WIP. So that is basically what we are trying to adopt, and we're trying to use. Maybe the question that if we success, to be honest, I say that not yet, but we are start populating the information in order for us to get more to get more data, so we can analyze further. But this is based on the mapping. We can see there's a potential for us. There's an opportunity for us to become more cost efficiency if we applying or adopting this knowledge. Same with this on the capacity utilization, right? You can see that the before and after. So the capacity utilization has become more lower rather than before we do this mapping. And next, I think this is also to share to you that what we are trying to do is we're trying to, because again, I think Mr. Amir also mentioned about how we should unlearn ourselves and learn the new things, right? It's a tough. It's a very challenging on that one. So we're trying to draw a line, even if we are trying to differentiate between the project controls role and the project production control. Because if we trying to push or to expect the project control does this, and it's difficult, right? So we are trying to do like this. So if you see, basically the project control will manage the master schedule, and then all the milestone will be transferred to the project production group, and on the based on the standard processes that we have, standard process library that we have developed so far, we can start creating the production schedule. So the production schedule is basically what we tell is what we can do, right? So then after the production schedule, we do the production planning, and the production planning that in executing, so the can and the wheel. So the production planning will be derived from the production scheduling. Then we'll execute the work, and we will monitor whether we did it or we did not do it. It is basically, this is a continuous improvement process for us. So the collaboration, the coordination become more and more frequent with the team in order to learn what we did wrong before and how to avoid that in the future. So this is about how to control and improve the project production system. This is how we set up. And this is also again sharing about what we developed, the bill of processes, the standard process library. We keep adding every time that we have some, say, not new project or some initiative, then we start adding the standard process library to our library. And based on that, then we know that if you compare also on the right hand side table, so we can see that the previously I think you can see the draft is quite the range is quite wide, right? But on the right hand side it's much more stable. So that's how we expect that we can increase the work plan based on the standard process. So it's much more controllable. That's how we expect. So and same in here, that we are trying to reduce the cycle time, as I also shared earlier, that having less WIP and having less cycle times, that can also will help our cost efficiency. So that is this is just sharing that what we have done so far, and this is also same like before. This is a sharing that what the record from us, that the commitment reliability that we have when we compare the earlier time until today, it's become more and more stable. So then, based on the information, based on the data, based on the analysis, so we can improve. So we also learn how variabilities will impact our performance and how we can address them. So basically, like on the right hand side, chart called reason summary. That is, we can see it as similar like the variability, right? What are the reasons when we cannot meet our own plan? So we should give a reason. So based on that, then we can analyze what are the most reason that we fail to meet our plan, and then the discussion will be how to overcome that. Whether we should resequence the work, or we do some shifting on the resources, so whatever from that one. So it is a very a continuous improvement type of process. So we have all the information, so we keep improving. Over the time, we expect that we become more and more credible on executing our work. So then the question will be that what will be next for us, for Tripatra? So because we have told ourselves, I think this is the right path for us to improve our performance, right? So we are continuing to build our PPM capabilities, right? And then we also combine it on the right hand side, combine with the digital transformation. But what I feel it's quite important is also very key in how to make this successful is a collaboration with the industry stakeholder. Same with, I think it will be great, for example, if because right now, especially here in Indonesia, right, we are maybe the first one who has adopted this, and even the client, the subcontractor, the supplier hasn't heard about this. It's so difficult to ask them to discuss on this level, right? So imagine if we got an environment where the client has used that, whereas many of the stakeholders, it will become more and more valuable for everybody to deliver the project as what everybody's expected. And I think like James highlight also earlier that basically in how to reduce the duration and reduce the cash, and maybe then basically it's improve the profitability of the project stakeholder. So basically that is the aim or the aspiration that we have, and I should admit that we cannot claim that we are there. We haven't reached that level yet. We are still in the journey. We are still in the very beginning of the journey. But I think that we have some real belief that if this can be adopted by more and more, it will improve our industry. It will improve this, which I think that everybody know that is the statistics also show, right, how much or how many projects that can successfully deliver this project on time and on budget is less, very less, right? So hopefully by having this new knowledge based on operation science, it will help our industry. Then it will benefit everybody. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Dira Nandana from PT Tripatra for the sharing. Definitely, we are in the journey, right? But it seems Indonesia, Tripatra already one step ahead of us. But it is always a big opportunity for us to collaborate and work together in the journey to build up the capability and maturity in PPM implementation.
Yeah, looking forward to do that. Yes,
definitely. I did ask I think Roberto before this. As Petronas is going towards implementation of PPM, are we going to be the first in Southeast Asia or maybe Asia? So Roberto said somebody else already started here. So it's PT Tripetra, and we can only say that we have start the first project in Malaysia only, not further than that. So anyway, it is still an exciting journey ahead of us. And I would like to invite Roberto to share a little bit more on the PPM application from solution provider perspective, strategic project solution, the technical services for PPM application. Please, Roberto.
Thank you so much, Al, and once again, good morning to everyone. One quick comment, and Al, you mentioned PACDIRA and PT Tripatra, and one thing I can tell you is that PACDIRA is leading the organization in a very unique way. So I think you're going to hear much more about Tripatra in the next few months, in the next few years. So in this, I'm going to focus, I would say, 10 minutes. We'll do this quick because I really want to show or share with you two main ideas. One is about an additional story of application of PPM in construction. I'm going to go through that very quickly. You have seen already not only PT Tripatra, but also the work that Chevron has presented to all of you. So I have another story very quickly. And to move to the second idea, it's more about thinking about the future, thinking about next practices, and a specific idea associated with intelligent production. Okay, and obviously I am between all of us and the panel discussion, so I promise I will be quick so we can get the conversation going. Let's talk about this application story. And this is a sulfur plant that was actually built in the United States. It's a tail gas unit. This was an effort that was championed by a owner operator together with a pool of preferred suppliers, contractors in a very integrated way. The challenge they were experiencing is that the engineering, unfortunately, was actually about 4 months late. And that created a significant propagation effect into construction, but obviously the end date was not changed. Therefore, the construction window got reduced, right? Because of that. And also what happened is, also connected with the delays in engineering, is that the delivery of 3 towers as part of the engineering of this plant was actually not only unpredictable, but it was actually really late. And what you see here on the right is the impact of PPM. And there's a lot of information here, so let me take a few seconds to take you through this quickly. The end result, and perhaps the most important thing, is that the project, even though you saw the delays, was actually on time, and they were able to finish under budget. And so let me explain why. How is it possible that they did that? So in this chart, which is a very typical, sort of S-curve, but it's combined with manpower, right? And this was created by the project team as a result. You have the blue line, which is the target in terms of completing the work, and you have the red line, which is what they actually did, right? And as you can see, the red line is started getting closer to the blue towards the end to finish, obviously, on time. This box that is being seen here is when the towers were supposed to arrive, right? But unfortunately, the towers arrived later on, and despite the late arrival of the towers, through PPM, the team was able to accommodate an on-time completion. Not only that, but also to use less resources, more specifically less manpower, which contributed significantly to finish under budget, right? You see the red bars going up is what they were planning to allocate, and the blue bars over time is what they actually used to execute the same amount of work. The scope never changed, and they focus on basically how can we, you remember James Chu's presentation, how can we more effectively manage variability? How can they focus on designing the work, right? And PACDIRA also focused on the how. They did something very similar through the application of PPM. Furthermore, if I continue, I thought it would be interesting for our audience this morning because, we have a large engineering and construction audience joining us. And what you see here is multiple projects that this particular team compared themselves against to, right? So plant 1, tail gas, is where PPM was implemented, and on the same plant, they had other projects going on. They had an additional plant that coincidentally, there was actually work happening there, and a third plant where they also were building a tail gas, and they had, once again, the same pool of contractors working across all of this, the same companies. And the important message here in this particular table is that, you know, the throughput, right? The throughput, how many in this case, sorry, the amount of man hours that was actually allocated to a specific linear foot on piping or tonnage on steel was significantly lower in most cases compared to the other projects where the scope was the same, right? And so this contributed significantly, and these are numbers that the team put together because, you know, at the time, the project managers and the people working on the other plants, they couldn't believe what the team at the plant one was actually doing, and they had to illustrate not only how they did it, but also more specifics about what they were able to accomplish and produce this table. What exactly did they do to achieve this? And I'm going to take you through a few details. They implemented something that in production management, in project production management, is known as project production control. Pak Dira alluded to that as well. Craig Evans from Chevron also highlighted the application of production control. They did something similar. And what this schematic here shows is that they did not change the schedule on the top, right? They use, typically a lot of companies these days use Primavera P6. They also were using Primavera P6, and the schedule was used more for reporting and forecasting progress, and was used for the basis of project accounting, as well as for the basis of project controls, right? But what they focus on is to implement an engine, and please allow me to call it that way, below the blue line, that had multiple components. The first component was mainly focused on understanding how they're going to do the work and how are they going to design the different production processes for construction of the plant, right? Even if those processes require craft work or knowledge workers, right? Support activities or the combination of both. Then, as you can see this photo in the middle, they focus on organizing, interconnecting these different process designs to create a flow of operations for the purpose of daily control, for the purpose of, even in some cases, control by shift, because there were portions of the job that were done in 2 shifts, one in the morning or during the day, one at night. The next thing they did is to you heard Dr. Chu talk about the importance of making sure your work in process does not get out of control, because, and Pak Dira also highlighted that the more WIP you have, the more you're going to use cash, and the more the more it's going to cost you, right? So this team particularly put a lot of emphasis on a daily basis. This is not something that you will do once a month. This is not something that you will do even once a week. Daily, on how they're controlling the working process and exactly what capacity they're allocating to which work. And capacity meaning resources such as people, workers, equipment, and even access to a space, right? They execute the work, they learn what was happening to them, how much variability was actually being incorporated into the production system, and use a different set of analytics. These are non-traditional analytics. We're not talking about, once again, is curves and things like that, which are useful, but this brings a different set of goggles, if you will, on how teams, even experienced teams, by the way, can actually look at the work, okay? So once again, the story is a very critical situation. Unfortunately, got out of control. They decided to implement PPM to address that situation, more specifically production control. They achieved significant productivity improvements, significant cost improvements under budget compared to other projects that the same group of people, the same pool of contractors working with the same owner were actually working in multiple locations at the same time. The other thing that I would like to highlight, and this is a bit different, is that these days, compared to what those guys were doing, we have access, obviously, to a different type of technology. We have access to production control tools that will allow teams to use phones or iPads intrinsically safe if you need to, and actually rapidly create what we call here as production schedules that are ready for control through the use of standard processes in a matter of seconds, right? And the idea is how to rapidly control work and how to be more flexible in order to do it. That will lead us to this idea that I mentioned earlier, which we call intelligent production. And intelligent production can be defined, and there are companies focusing on this, jumping on this journey as well. You heard Craig Evans talk about IoT and other technologies, right? But the concept or the idea is that you can have production systems that will actually self-organize and optimize themselves through the combination of operation science and digital technology. What you see in this schematic at the bottom of it is any sort of production process. Obviously, this is just a representation from extracting raw materials all the way to manufacturing or fabricating an assembly, for instance, modules or skids, or even pipe spools, just to put an example, transporting them, looking at how you're going to make sure that your stocks are not actually getting out of control, especially when you have materials or assemblies or sub-assemblies that become unique and they need to be placed in a very specific location, right? They're not interchangeable, right? And then obviously the installation, right? So, but out of the production system bottom up, you have different ways of transferring the data associated with the behavior of the production system, the actual behavior of the production system, right? And you can use data science to understand even more. You heard Chevron even bringing data into their data lakes and applying data science to get additional insights, additional intel on what opportunities for improvement become more reliable, become more predictable, right? You can combine production system optimization as well as production control as a means to optimize that together with operation science, okay? So the reason why, and I finish with this, the reason why we're bringing this to your attention is because the idea of digital platforms and digital technology, the main differentiator in the market and for companies that are involved in any sort of production activity, it is important that we connect that with the actual production work. We see a lot of organizations that are going digital, but they're actually focusing on project administration, right? They're investing or implementing digital technologies on project administration. I'm not saying that that is not necessarily of value, but if we're looking at improving project performance, which a lot of you are probably looking to do, the key here is that we actually deploy technology, as we are saying here with intelligent production, to the actual work, okay? So thank you for that, and I think I will pass it over to our moderator right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, good evening, everywhere you are. So, I believe that the participant was observed a lot of useful, valuable input if we are implementing of the PPM in project management. Through the presentation, personally, in my opinion, is very impressive to be adopted in our region. So the first, I have a question to Chevron. Hi, Craig.
Hi.
Okay, great. Chevron, as owner on the established company, which are involved with the upstream exploration, production to midstream transportation, power, and third industry manufacturing and retail. I believe that the participants are very interested to know, in angle of honor, how the PPN could give you a benefit to a company. And if you don't mind, you may also cite on the value realizing after implement the PPM. Yes, please, Craig.
Yeah, so I think currently, as I mentioned, we are, focused on capital projects. So a lot of our larger projects out there, there is opportunity to definitely expand this across things like unconventionals, across our supply chains, in turnarounds and maintenance work as well. I think that is yet to come for us. I think it's, again, it's part of the process of going through that. I think from a value perspective, I touched on it slightly before, but, we've seen, and it's great that, we're Dorado on, because, talking about the contractors. So Chevron actually doesn't build anything ourselves, right? It's the contractors that build it for us. So a lot of our effort and value is derived from the contractors being successful or our business partners being successful. So, that's why I talked a little bit about earlier about being predictable and competitive. If we end up with a contractor that is successful and delivers their project on time and they make their profit as they expected, that's a really good outcome for us. So that's value to Chevron at the end of the day, because we get our project, because we actually, as similar to Petronas, it's hard to say bad words, but we don't make money until the project comes online and starts producing, right? The contractor makes their profit and money during the project, kind of thing. So it's trying to align those two value drivers. So if we have a successful contractor and they derive value from the project and they meet our business objectives, that's our value at the end of the day, kind of thing. So that's important. To put quantums on it, actual numbers, we've seen stuff where it doesn't take much to save $50 million on something. Or see a 30% reduction in cycle time. Now, whether that is a true $50 million saving to us or whether it's cost avoidance, it's hard to sort of say sometimes around that. I think one of the biggest value drivers is just clear understanding of how the work's going to get done. Roberto just touched on it recently before about, a lot of AI and technologies out there around project administration versus project execution. If I take the technology part away, PPM is, one of the most fundamentals is getting to the people who are going to do the work and understanding how that work's going to be done and empowering those people to get the work, which is, really the contractors. So hopefully that's answered your question.
Thank you, Craig. I think a very good explanation. And through a chat room here, there a voice from the contractor from Malaysia here. Okay, I believe I will channel this question to Bapak Dira. Apa khabar, Pak?
Ya, Pak.
Yeah, Pak. As a company established in 1973, I was 44 years old at the time. Okay, and dealing in the industry as a EPC contractor in Indonesia and involved in operation, maintenance as well. We are really appreciate if you could share why you choose PPM compared to other solutions available in the market. And besides that, if you can share also your experience on the PMT in recepting or adopting PPM, including all the challenges in the beginning stage. Yes, please, Pak Dira.
Thank you. Okay, so why is the PPM? I think that I mentioned earlier. I mean, slightly, basically like what I said that first of all that we see that this is the closest say knowledge that to what we have been doing before, where before we just do it without, we just did it without really understand the background or the concept, basically, because like what I also shared, that what we are facing here with a lot of contractors here in Indonesia, the local contractor, we know that they are not really that mature in terms of the management, construction management. So we have, even though that we have a contract, we have this terms and conditions with the contract, but at the end of the day, we have to manage them because the liability lies with us as the main contractor. So then when we were introduced by this knowledge, and then they are keep say sharing about the importance of the how to plan the execution, that is very close to us. So then why not adopting this? Because then you ask that why this? Because we have been trying to do everything, right? I mean, like I think Roberto mentioned also P6, we are using P6, but P6 does not help us at the moment, right? Yes, P6 will create some good reporting we can do, but it doesn't really help us in the execution, right? But the baseline or the schedule, yes, it will be P6, but in execution, we don't have anything yet at the moment. It's only that, okay, maybe you will have some daily planning, but we know that sometimes that even comparing to our own daily planning, the actual execution, maybe they can only produce less than 50% of it, right? So then we are, and then there's no record why they cannot achieve that plan. So with this, we expect that we start getting more information. Now about the difficulties in implementing this, it is difficult. I mean, I'm just sharing openly here that it is difficult, especially like I think especially for us, right? We've been doing in this business since 73, 47 plus years, right? Close to 48 years, and now all of a sudden I said, please stop doing that and do this thing, right? So it is tough, but we are slowly starting getting more and more adoption, but still, I mean, we have, like I said, that I'm not really want to say that, admit that we have been excellent in project production management, not yet. We are just really at the beginning, an early adopter of this one, but we truly believe that this may help us to improve our execution. Hope that answer.
Thank you, Padida.
Could I add to that just something? Would that be okay? I just want to add something on the difficulty in implementing, because we've had the same thing as an owner. I think success depends on leadership in this, and when you have good leadership and leadership driving the change, and and not just going out there saying this is what we're going to do, but saying this is why we're going to do it and how we're going to do it, it's a lot easier to get this. This isn't hard to do from a technical, from my perspective. I don't know, from TEPCO's, from a doing it perspective and having the work and doing the actual work, that's not hard. It's the changing the behaviors that becomes the hard part. And when you have good leadership and people support you, it just happens. So I just wanted to sort of add that. So
thank you, Craig, for that additional remark on that. So on the challenging, I believe everybody are very, very interesting on that. So that the same we're going to face during the first implementation. So we are, I think, very eager to learn from all of you here. So the next question on the more or less on the PPI. So we have James as a technical committee member in the PPI. So that we noticed that from the presentation about focus, about control, and improve the production compared to the project schedule. My question, who should drive the PPM implementation in terms of a company, whether it's from owner or contractor, and as well from the project management team itself, whether you have any a guideline or something you can explain on this?
Well, so the first question, who should drive? And I think it's actually very appropriate that we actually have Chevron and Tripatra actually on the speaking here. I think it's actually whoever wants to benefit from it, right? So from an owner's perspective, the owners that we actually have been working with, not just in oil and gas, but in the other industries as well, are looking to reduce the time to market of their products, whether it's actually data centers, whether it's products, or whether it's oil and gas facilities. They want to be able to reduce time to market and at the same time achieve that with lower cost. So the ones that actually are looking for that is actually driving it. In the contractor's perspective, as Thera actually talked about, ones that actually wants to have competitive advantage are actually diving into PPM, right? And some of them actually may have gotten to introduced to the concept through an owner, but we actually have contractors that are saying, I want to take this on and become competitive in the businesses that I'm actually in. So whoever wants to benefit from it, I think should actually drive it. Okay. Now, from who's actually leading the organization within each company, it could be actually, again, the names and the conventions are different from each company to company. But from a project's perspective, we actually say there are, as Craig talked about, leaders that says this is the way we're actually headed forward. That person, whether he or she, may not actually do the day-to-day implementation, but actually having a clear vision and the direction, I think, is very important. Like actually Dira is actually setting for the whole organization, or a project manager that's actually setting for the whole project. In terms of day-to-day operations, then you actually have people that are leading the conversations. Again, they might not be the ones that are actually interacting with the computers, but there are the people that are leading the conversation. And then there are technical groups that are working on the systems and software, and then those things. They could be project engineers, and project engineers could be construction engineers, as some companies might call them. Some actually companies might actually have people from cost engineering or project management, but it's whoever actually, and I've seen actually it work in many different cases, but it actually also depends on the person that is interested in actually doing it. And with that, I think I'm going to actually ask Craig and Pakdira to actually talk about who they actually have it leading it in their organizations, maybe.
Thank you.
Craig?
Thank you. James. Okay. Do we have a time somehow? So I have a last question to Roberto, as the one who, as a technical services VP, Vice President with SPS. If there's a lot of puzzle right now from the participants on the different between the project scheduling, project control, and the production control. So I believe that if you can complement current practice between project control and production control.
Okay, so thanks for the question. I think that's a very important question. So let me elaborate. So we should probably answer this question this way. So the word controls is not the plural of the word control. They don't mean the same, right? Controls are more about what has happened, and it's more about getting progress data and things like that. But control is more about setting a direction, right? It's more about how you are driving the use of capacity, the use of your inventory, your work in process, and how can you manage, because you cannot eliminate it, variability, right? And so in essence, to say project control and production control, or or project controls, right? Project controls is in the industry, in the engineering and construction industry, is more specific on focusing on reporting and forecasting against a baseline, right? Most companies do that. On the production control side, is to set direction, is to make sure how teams at the execution level are going to allocate capacity and manage inventory or variability, right? They're not the same, right? They can be complemented, right? What we see a lot, by the way, is teams, and this might happen to people in the audience, especially those that are in project manager positions or project leadership positions that, you know, again, I was talking to a person yesterday managing a very complex project, and he was basically telling me, look, I get my monthly report, you know, today is July, I will get it tomorrow, Friday. Well, we're in the United States, obviously, tomorrow, Friday, but it's the report of June, right? So it's the report that was actually, he's getting a document that is reporting what happened last month, right? And so this person is being forced, unfortunately, to make some sort of decision with data that is already probably more than a month old, right? And so that's just an example to illustrate, um, you know, nobody's saying that reporting progress is wrong or is the wrong thing to do. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, right? There is a role for that, right? But production control is more about the dynamics of the work. And once again, control is not the same as controls. Hopefully, I helped clarify that, but it's not the same thing.
Thank you, Roberto.
Sure.
It's a very good explanation. Al, do you have some more time to look on the chat room if any further question that we need to ask to our panelists here?
Yes, I think we have some question, but before that, yeah, Puan Zaida, Sharifah was already asking, raising her hand. Puan Sharifah,
Yeah, yes,
you
please, Tuan
can ask
Sharifah.
directly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You are
you
mute.
are still muted.
You are mute, Tuan Sharifah. We cannot hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for giving this opportunity. I'd like to jump in there because I see a lot of questions in the chat, and what I like, because I like to do is to just a little bit summarize on probably what people are looking for from the presentation. By the way, all panels fantastic. It was very clear, very clear on what PPM is, and you know, even in my head now I sort of grasp what PPM is all about. So let me just try and summarize, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So PPM is all about whatever that we are doing. It's the first line of PPM, in the sense that we actually do a master schedule, and that can be a baseline that can be done, can be used for reporting, for progress report, things like that, and for all the administrative tasks. But at the same time, the master schedule will have to be split or looked into the different steps and the activities that needs to be done, and that is where your project production control sits in. And the way I see it, the master schedule people who's handling that may not be the same as the project production control group, sort of thing. And I think the question that was eluding inside all the chats are, you know, in order to actually, okay, we have the master schedule, a lot of us are using Primavera in Malaysia, but the project production control, what are the kind of softwares that maybe Pak Dira can actually share that he had to sort of purchase or get into in order to actually produce the steps within the production control team. And I think in terms of what kind of people, that was answered in the first few webinars that we have, because the people that's in there will be a mixture of actual project engineers, project construction, people who actually knows what step needs to be taken for each of the breakdown of activities that we need to do. So I suppose the main question would be what type of people, what type of software. And I think a lot of the question also go into what kind, for maybe Pak Dira, maybe Craig, I think Chevron, what kind of commercial decisions that need to be made, and is it big, is it small, is it, is it like enormous? And I'd like to congratulate Pak Dura for, I think you're a fantastic leader, because in order to actually do that, what you did in Indonesia and not have the support system there is number one. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe Pak
Yes,
Dira
Pak.
can respond first.
Okay, first on the software, actually that we are helped by SPS. We are using the system. They have a platform for us to use. So yes, in order to use, of course, that there's a proprietary information that we need to share also. So that's we have that. So we are using their platform for that, because that we start developing our standard process library, and also whatever the production system were generated there. So it's there. But I think I also Roberto keep reminding me that is us. I mean, it's not belong to them, but it is us. So we have a full access on that one. So we are using that. There's already a structure there. Yes, there were some trainings that we have to follow in order to use, but I think much more important is about about the people, right? I think it's same in my organization. People sees that as a software. So when they use that, then it will provide a result. But I think in the discussion here, I think it's also mentioned that the important thing is about the people, right? The person who knows exactly about the work is the people who does the work, not the planner, not even, I mean, the project engineer probably yes, but they should become the facilitator. The one who shall discuss the execution should be the one who does the work. And basically it should be a collaborative with different function, different discipline. So then we are trying to fill in the gap. So at the end of the day, the expectation, we have a complete production system. So that's basically. When you ask me about the commercial thing, right? I think it's quite sensitive, because there's. No, I mean, to me, the way that I see is like this, right? I think first of all that we see this as a value, right? And we are not. We say to ourselves, we don't want to. We see some of the testimony, some of the example, what Chevron did, was Chevron successful. So for us, that is already enough at the moment, right? Because it is also should be part of a journey. Yes, we need to measure about our capacity to absorb the cost, but because of the belief that it will, for example, that if we are not, because right now our costs were spent to something which we were not planning, right? You said that, I mean, I've shared that. Look, right now we miss the end date, right? So that's also creating a cost, right? What if those costs I use to make sure that I'm able to meet, right? So that is basically the say the the intention at the beginning, right? Yes, somebody I think asked about the return of investment. We are not try to put a target at the moment. We know that this is a learning curve for us. So hopefully after that we have passed some more times, then we are able to calculate that. But at the moment, because this is just based on belief that this will bring us to a better organization in executing the work. Hopefully that's answer the question.
Thank you, Pak Dira. Is it address the concern from Puan Sharifah?
Yes, but it does bring another question. Is SPS, I'm sorry, Roberto, I'm just asking probably what's in other people's mind. Is SPS the only software platform provider, or there are many out there? And are you in Malaysia, or there are others in Malaysia? I think that would be the question that people will be on their mind.
Thank you for the question. So yeah, we work all over the world. Our solutions have been used in different continents, in Australia, in the United States, South America, different types of applications, not only oil and gas, by the way. also being used to build ships, for instance, shipyards, and also by technology companies to build data centers. So it's important to understand that this is not just about oil and gas, although most of the people here are probably focusing on oil and gas, right? And so and also applications as a, in engineering and in things that are not necessarily physical production, right? The term production typically is understood as some sort of physical production, but you can do different types of production, right? And so our platform focuses on that. It's difficult, to be honest with you, to talk about us, but I can tell you that our customers certainly prefer working with us because of the different type of applications that we have for supply flow control, for production control, for production system optimization, and we bring what we believe is a unique platform for production systems, for project production systems, right? Once again, it's our expertise is on project production systems and how we can enable teams in real companies doing real jobs, trying to optimize things that are really interested in performance, right? Because we see companies that are, just talking and talking and talking, and you don't see people like Chevron and Tripatra and Petronas, right? That get really, really serious about this, right? And I mean it, really, really serious about this, that have a commitment to be better, right? And so, and I think these companies have realized and process this idea that, how can you get better if you don't really focus it on the work, right?
Thank you, Roberto.
Sure.
Any more concern? Anything you want to add? Some more points, Sharifah?
I may just add one little part
Yeah.
more maybe to that is right about the tool, and the tool's an enabler, but if what you saw of some of the processes are very much business processes, not the tool. So I think it's important to very much understand the difference between a business process and the tool. And then I'd like to add on the commercial aspects, maybe from an owner's perspective, is we've done this work on lump sum, unit rate, reimbursable, every different type of contract out there. We've had it in the contract, not in the contract. At the end of the day, the construct of the contract, to me, it's is there. However, we've had somebody on a lump sum contract who it wasn't even in their contract to do this, say, I want to go do that with you because they saw value in it. I've had this in a reimbursable contract where we're going to pay for it all and they don't want to go do it, kind of thing at the end of the day. So again, it's back to that desire to change, that desire to, work with us as a company as well. And that's a prerequisite now for a lot of our projects, is that you will work with us in there as well. And one other aspect I'd like to add is that, we're trying to build it into our existing work processes or into our work processes. So it becomes part of execution. It's not something else that becomes a layer over the top of everything else. So it's not another new initiative. It's how we're going to do our work. So build it into how you're going to do your work. So sorry to take up a couple of extra minutes there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that our panelists have well done through answering all the questions. Okay, and it's my great pleasure that all participants, including our panelists, we had a fruitful discussion today. So finally, I would like to express my appreciation to all the participants, panelists, for taking time out of your busy duty. Yeah? And as Muslim today, we have a Friday prayer, okay? And as well, to be part in our panel discussion. And as well to the organizer for sending excellent participants to this session. So before that, I would like Roberto. I will hand over that to Roberto for do some wrap up before final to the Al for the final wrap up. Thank you all.
Thank you. So and thank you for inviting me to do a 1 minute wrap up on key ideas, right? Just 1 minute. And this is just a summary, right? That we will let you, things that we will let you to remember as it relates to PPM. The first one is, remember that one of the key ideas is projects as production systems, right? Projects, by the way, are production systems, right? You have inputs that create outputs using resources such as labor, equipment, and space, right? The first idea is let's look at those as production systems. The second one is that because of that, we can actually map these production systems and understand them, but beyond that, we can simulate, analyze, and optimize them using operation science as a technical framework and specific tools that allow us to look at this optimization using computers these days, right? The next idea is that control, once again, as Syed asked the question, is not controls, right? It's different. But more importantly, it's about the 5 levers that James Chu introduced. Product design, process design, capacity, inventory, and variability, right? And that these levers are interconnected, right? They're interconnected, right? For any work, even knowledge work or craft work. And finally, the concept that I introduced in my personal presentation, the idea of intelligent production, right? Why is that important? Because we see a movement around the global construction, engineering and construction industry with a strong desire to modernize, right? Modernize the industry. And so intelligent production becomes a platform, forms the basis for that. How to industrialize, how to digitize, and how to automate. Okay, so thank you for the time for do the summary.
Thank you very much, Roberto, and our moderator, Syed Razak, as well as all the speakers. And we are in the end of the session, and this is a joint industry collaboration program for adoption of global best practices, AWP and PPM. And today we focus on project production management, which we see the difference, the revolutionary mindset change in terms of looking at project as a production system. It used to be a totally different subject, project and production, but how we can leverage on the operation science, how we can leverage on the advancement that already enjoyed in manufacturing industry. As I can see one of the comment in the chat box, construction is one of the worst in productivity reports based on the latest even Q1 2021 statistics, that we should do something about it. Doing same might not be really rational for us to expect different result. So PPM could be one of the different new way of working that we should adopt for implementation. And thank you very much again for the insights we have today with the panel speakers. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to apologize for any shortcomings from our session today. Maybe some of the question, hopefully we answer some of the all the question either directly or indirectly. But anyway, you can always connect with the fellow speakers and their organizations through us at MOTSI or at the JIC, or you can also always visit the PPI website and Project Production Institute, where you can have access to a lot of great resources there for reference and for the betterment of our project delivery. And I hope the session really answered the question on what is project production management and why we call it a new era in project delivery. And before we go, we part off, appreciate for the feedback. If we can have all the participants to provide your feedback. Maybe you can see the feedback, Hakim? Or is it already in the chat room? And let's have is it okay for everybody to turn on your camera? 1 minute of group photo. While at the same time, you can always you can provide the feedback as well. It's very encouraging participation today. We have more than about 250 plus at maximum, almost the capacity of Microsoft Teams that we have. I personally get to out and interact few times, maybe because of the limitation, but hopefully everybody gain good insights and are more clearer on how to move forward in project production management implementation.
Sama-sama, thank you.
Sama-sama. Okay, we already have. Oh, ingatkan dah ambil gambar. Cameraman, you need to count. I think okay, we can take the picture now.
Smile.
All right, nice. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I believe for the there are some question on the presentation pack and materials. We will try to provide to you, but to those who provide the response, so that we can have your email address through that response as well, and the secretariat will make an effort to share once we get the materials from our panel speakers today. Again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the session, 2-hour session of a lot of exciting journey and interesting topics we have today. I'm as the master of ceremony for today. I would like to again apologize. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a good day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Terima kasih semua.
Thank you. Thank you, MCs, moderators, and speakers. And Craig and Roberto, you can go back to sleep because you're in a different time zone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Craig is ready for breakfast, and we're going.
Yeah, breakfast. Yeah, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Have an excellent weekend.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
So inspiring, Craig, for your commitment. Thank you very much again.
All good.
Thank
3
Thank you very much.
a.m. in the morning. Wow.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, bye. Thank you, Pak Dira.
Thank you, Pak Dira.
We will keep in touch, Pak Dira.
Sure.
Inspirational leader you are.
Thank you.
We coming to Indo after this.
Kena ada vaksin pasport dulu.
Ya betul.
Pak Sharifah minggu depan boleh lah tu.
Itulah hari Senin. Dia tunggu 14 hari before it actually works, the vaccine.
Thank you.
Oh, well
Alright.
done, Al. Well done, Syed. It's really good.
Thank you, Pak
Thank you
Sharifah.
for the clarity. So we look forward to the next one, yeah? I think it's next week, right? Next week, tak silap.
The other week.
The other week.
The other week on
Okay.
Monday. I think 9th.
9th, okay.
9th.
So we look forward to that lah. Very good.
Thank you, Pak Sharifah.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for the collaboration again.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.